The film begins with the citizens of Munchkin Land celebrating the death of the Wicked Witch of the West. Their jubilation is palpable as they sing "No One Mourns the Wicked," expressing relief at the witch's demise. Amidst the festivities, Glinda descends from the sky in her signature bubble. She gracefully joins the Munchkins, who look to her for guidance and insight into the witch's past. Glinda begins to narrate the untold story of the Wicked Witch, revealing that she was born as Elphaba, the daughter of the governor of Munchkin Land. Elphaba's birth was marked by her unusual green skin, a result of an affair between her mother and a mysterious traveling salesman. This physical difference led to her ostracization from birth and a troubled childhood. As Glinda reflects on their shared history, she acknowledges that she and Elphaba were once friends, having met during their school days at Shiz University. A couple of years ago, a younger Elphaba arrives at Shiz University. She is accompanied by her younger sister, Nessarose, who uses a wheelchair. Elphaba's arrival is met with curiosity and prejudice due to her green skin. Despite this, her innate magical abilities quickly become apparent, catching the attention of Madame Morrible, the university's Dean of Sorcery Studies. Impressed by Elphaba's potential, Madame Morrible offers to tutor her privately, suggesting that such guidance could lead to an audience with the Wizard of Oz, whom Elphaba hopes can degreenify her. Elphaba's initial days at Shiz are further complicated when she is assigned to room with Glinda, a bubbly and popular student. One evening, both young women retreat to their beds to write letters home. Glinda's letter is filled with cheerful anecdotes and gratitude, written in her signature bubbly tone. She thanks her parents profusely for allowing her to attend Shiz University and describes her experiences with excitement. Elphaba, on the other hand, writes a much more somber letter. Her words are deliberate and heartfelt, addressing her father with a sense of duty. She promises to ensure that Nessarose, her younger sister, is well cared for and settled at the university. The weight of her responsibility is evident in her tone, as she feels the burden of being both protector and caretaker. The next morning, Elphaba wakes up to a shock. Her side of the dorm room has been overtaken by Glinda's belongings, which are arranged in an explosion of bright pink decorations. Glinda's flamboyant style clashes starkly with Elphaba's preference for muted tones like black and nude. The sight of her personal space invaded irritates Elphaba, but she says nothing at first, quietly moving Glinda's things back to her side of the room. Later that day, Glinda returns from class to find her belongings shoved aside. As days turn into weeks, their bickering continues. They argue over everything, as well as in class. Amid this ongoing personal drama, academic life at Shiz continues. One morning, the students file into a lecture by Dr. Dillamond, a goat and the only remaining speaking animal at the university. Dr. Dillamond begins his class with a lesson on the history of Oz, focusing on a time when animals were equal members of society. He speaks passionately about the golden age when animals and humans coexisted harmoniously, his voice tinged with sadness as he explains how those days are now a distant memory. He attributes the decline of animal status to a devastating drought that ravaged the land years ago, altering the balance of power and leading to the suppression of animal rights. As Dr. Dillamond prepares to show the next slide in his presentation, he freezes. Someone has defaced the slide with the words, "Animals shouldn't be heard or seen." The hateful message is a direct attack on him and everything he represents. The classroom falls silent as the weight of the insult sinks in. Visibly shaken, Dr. Dillamond dismisses the class early, unable to continue. While the other students leave, Elphaba stays behind. She steps forward to help, her empathy evident in her gentle movements. She tells him she understands what it's like to be ridiculed for being different. Dr. Dillamond, touched by her kindness, thanks her and encourages her to join her classmates. But Elphaba quietly confesses that she doesn't have any friends. Their shared moment of vulnerability creates a bond between them, and Dr. Dillamond offers her a small smile of gratitude. Later, Elphaba attends a private lesson with Madame Morrible. Madame Morrible begins the session with an exercise designed to help Elphaba harness her magical abilities. She places a coin on the table and instructs Elphaba to move it using only her mind. Elphaba tries, but her frustration quickly builds as the coin remains stubbornly still. Her emotions begin to overwhelm her, and she vents to Madame Morrible about the incident in Dr. Dillamond's class. She speaks of the injustice he faces and the cruelty of those who mock him. As her emotions surge, something extraordinary happens. Objects in the room begin to tremble, responding to the intensity of her feelings. The coin she had struggled to move suddenly flies across the room with incredible force, shattering a glass cabinet. Madame Morrible watches in awe, astonished by the raw power Elphaba has unleashed. She praises Elphaba's potential but warns her that such power, if left unchecked, could be dangerous. She urges Elphaba to learn to control her emotions. As the evening settles, Elphaba decides to visit Dr. Dillamond's home. Something about his demeanor earlier in class worries her. When she arrives, she notices the faint glow of candlelight flickering through the windows and hears hushed voices, only to discover Dr. Dillamond hosting a secret meeting with a group of animals. Elphaba listens from outside, her heart sinking as she overhears their conversation. The animals speak in distressed tones about how many of their kind are disappearing without a trace. Worse still, those who remain are mysteriously losing their ability to speak, a sign of a larger, more sinister plot unfolding in Oz. As Elphaba processes this troubling information, she is suddenly struck by a quick vision, a brief, disorienting flash of images that leaves her momentarily stunned. In her distraction, she accidentally steps on a branch, the sharp crack echoing in the still night. The animals inside hear the noise and fall silent. Moments later, Dr. Dillamond steps outside to investigate. He gently invites her inside. Once inside, Elphaba insists that they should report these disappearances to someone powerful enough to intervene, the Wizard of Oz himself. Her suggestion is met with hesitation, as Dr. Dillamond is unsure whether the wizard can be trusted. The next day at Shiz, the school buzzes with excitement over the arrival of Prince Fiyero, a visiting royal whose charm and reputation precede him. Glinda, determined to make an impression, scrambles to find the perfect outfit. She meticulously prepares herself, hoping to catch the prince's eye. When Fiyero finally arrives, his arrival causes a stir, with most of the girls at Shiz swooning over his good looks and carefree demeanor. Glinda wastes no time, confidently approaching him and giving her hair a playful wiggle, as if casting a spell to draw his attention. Oddly enough, it works. Fiyero notices her, and she takes the opportunity to show him around the campus. However, it becomes clear that Fiyero is not particularly interested in academics. His thrill-seeking nature leaves him bored with school matters, and he looks for ways to entertain himself. Meanwhile, Nessarose excitedly approaches Elphaba to share some news. Bach, one of the students, has asked her out. Nessarose is overjoyed, but as she recounts the details, she mentions that Glinda was the one who encouraged Bach to invite her. Elphaba immediately grows suspicious, knowing Glinda's manipulative tendencies. She tries to warn Nessarose that the invitation might not be genuine, but Nessarose brushes off her concerns. Later, Elphaba returns to her dorm room to find Glinda waiting for her. To her surprise, Glinda invites her to the same event that everyone is attending that evening. Elphaba is taken aback, unsure whether Glinda is being genuine or setting her up for another humiliation. Glinda even offers Elphaba her grandmother's hat to wear, convincing her that it will suit her. Despite her reservations, Elphaba agrees, though she remains cautious about Glinda's intentions. Elsewhere, Madame Morrible catches Glinda with Prince Fiyero and pulls her aside for a private conversation. Glinda has been lobbying to join Madame Morrible's advanced magic class, and to her delight, Madame Morrible finally hands her a practice wand. Glinda beams with gratitude, believing she has earned the dean's favor. However, Madame Morrible reveals that it was Elphaba who insisted on Glinda's inclusion, threatening to drop out of the program if Glinda wasn't allowed to join. This revelation stuns Glinda, forcing her to confront the depth of Elphaba's kindness and her own pettiness. For the first time, she feels a pang of guilt for how she has treated Elphaba. That evening, Elphaba arrives at the party wearing the hat Glinda gave her, only to be met with laughter and ridicule. The other students mock her appearance, and Elphaba quickly realizes that Glinda's invitation was not entirely sincere. Overwhelmed with hurt, she thinks of leaving, but Glinda, struck by guilt, invites Elphaba to dance with her. Though hesitant and heartbroken, Elphaba accepts, and the two begin to dance. The moment is awkward but transformative. As they sway together, the crowd softens, and one by one, the other students join in. For the first time, Elphaba feels a glimmer of acceptance, even if it is fleeting. The next day, the newfound camaraderie is evident as the students greet Elphaba warmly. However, the fragile sense of belonging is shattered during Dr. Dillamond's class. He urgently announces his resignation, explaining that animals are no longer allowed to teach. Before the students can react, authorities arrive to escort him away. Elphaba stands in defiance, trying to protect him, but Miss Cottle warns her to stand down. Fueled by anger and despair, Elphaba's powers manifest uncontrollably. She causes everyone in the room to fall asleep, except for Prince Fiyero, who remains awake and helps her escape. Together, they flee with a lion cub that had been caged for experimentation, their actions marking the beginning of a partnership that will challenge the oppressive forces in Oz. The next morning, a letter arrives at Shiz. The dean, with a knowing smile, summons Elphaba and hands her the envelope. Elphaba's hands tremble as she opens it, revealing an official letter from none other than the Wizard of Oz himself. The letter invites her to his palace in the Emerald City, an opportunity she never dreamed possible. Overwhelmed with joy, Elphaba thanks Madame Morrible for believing in her and helping her unlock her potential. Later that day, a magnificent train, adorned with emerald green accents and golden detailing, arrives at the station to fetch Elphaba. The entire school gathers to see her off, their admiration evident in the applause and cheers as she steps aboard. Elphaba, touched by the moment, glances back at the crowd and spots Glinda standing apart, looking wistful. On an impulse, Elphaba reaches out her hand and invites Glinda to join her on the journey. Caught off guard but thrilled, Glinda accepts, and the two board the train together. The ride to the Emerald City is filled with anticipation. When they arrive, they are greeted by the dazzling sight of the city's towering green spires, bustling streets, and glowing lights. The citizens of Oz line the streets, waving and cheering as the girls are escorted toward the wizard's palace. Both Elphaba and Glinda are awestruck by the grandeur of the city, its beauty unlike anything they've ever seen. Inside the palace, they are greeted by a monkey known as Chistery. He guides them through the ornate halls to the wizard's chamber. As the massive doors open, the girls step inside to find the Wizard of Oz. His presence is commanding, yet his demeanor is warm and welcoming. Elphaba, filled with hope, pleads with the wizard to help the animals, explaining the plight of Dr. Dilliman and others like him. The wizard listens intently and assures her that he shares her concerns. To prove her worth and dedication, he presents her with a powerful, ancient spell book called the Grimoire. The book seems alive, its pages shifting and glowing as Elphaba approaches it. She begins to read aloud, her voice resonating with the magic of the text. Suddenly, Chistery lets out a piercing scream. The girls watch in horror as wings sprout painfully from his back. Rushing outside, they see other monkeys in the palace courtyard undergoing the same transformation. Elphaba realizes with dawning horror that the wizard is the one responsible for turning the citizens of Oz against animals. His experiments and propaganda have fueled the oppression she has been fighting against. Madame Morrible tries calming Elphaba and explain the necessity of the wizard's actions. But Elphaba, feeling betrayed, refuses to listen. She confronts the wizard, demanding answers, only to discover that he has no real magical powers. His authority is built on deception and manipulation. Devastated and furious, Elphaba grabs the Grimoire and runs from the palace. As she flees, Madame Morrible and the wizard quickly concoct a plan to discredit her. They release the winged monkeys to pursue her and begin spreading propaganda that paints Elphaba as a dangerous villain. Glinda, torn between loyalty to Elphaba and her desire to remain in the wizard's good graces, tries to reason with her friend. Elphaba, however, is resolute. Elsewhere, Madame Morrible holds a public announcement, accusing Elphaba of treason and urging the citizens to capture her. Determined to fight back, Elphaba delves into the Grimoire. She recites a spell that summons a broomstick, which floats toward her as if recognizing her as its master. She mounts the broom, ready to take flight. Before leaving, she turns to Glinda one last time, begging her to come along. Glinda, overcome with fear and doubt, declines but wishes Elphaba well. With tears in her eyes, Elphaba bids an emotional farewell to her best friend and soars into the sky, determined to save the animals and bring down the wizard's corrupt regime. Make sure to like and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.